Fire Emblem is fun. Doing the same moves over and over again is less fun. Also, as you play you improve, but the game doesn't get harder. Also, my imaginary friend told me I need to have something to talk about with friends. Enter drafting. You get some pals together, take turns picking units, and you can't use units you didn't draft. Sometimes it's a race, sometimes it's just a way to force yourself a little out of your comfort zone. Cool. In Engage, unit drafts can be pretty brutal early, but once you hit full deployment, you're just playing a standard run. Anyone in Engage can be a hero with the right investment. After some early bumps, unit drafts end up totally sane. Let's fix that. Enter the Mega Draft. Units, emblem rings, skill inherits, weapons, advanced classes, and weapon engraves. This isn't broken up into separate drafts either. If it's your turn, you can draft Mage Knight, Chloe, Celica, Micaiah Engrave, Speed Plus, or Volcano. 2+ hours of drafting fun. Completely locking yourself out of basic tactics. No need to race, because merely finishing is victory enough. I've had my fun hyping this up, but let me be clear. This is not a video about some masochistic challenge run. The Mega Draft isn't a cakewalk, but I really do think it's not as bad as it sounds. Today I want to talk about one of the most interesting draft metagames I know of and hopefully convince you to try this with your friends. This is my first challenge run besides a unit draft, which as mentioned above barely counts, but I had fun with this, and you can too. Let's first cover the basic rules. I'm linking a doc in the description with an updated rule set, of course open to modification based on your preferences. The rules are generous. Again, we weren't going for sadism. First, some stuff is available to everyone. Until Chapter 5 is completed, there are no restrictions. Allure, Vander, Seedle, and Bunei are free. Allure's self-explanatory, Seedle is just nice to have on the squad, Vander is early game insurance, and Bunei is to even out the unit picks. I wasn't a fan of Bunei free, but I've come around on it. You're incentivized to finagle abilities actually good at. All irons and the lowest tiers of each weapon are free. This is quite lenient. Fire and Iron Dagger are surprisingly good forges and at least get you through the early game. All personal classes and weapons are free, so Allure always has Divine Dragon and Liberation. Drafting Ivy gives you Linworm, no worries about that. This makes the Royals good drafts because they come bundled with the class. All base classes are free. This ends up being more important than you might think, as we'll see later. Drafting only applies to choosing to deploy a resource. Force deployed units are free on that map, including their emblems and inventories. After some discussion, we've elected to make the rule set less restrictive here and allow unrestricted trading with their inventories for that map. The only thing you're not allowed to do on a map is convoy undrafted items. Your play outside of battle is unrestricted. You can acquire proficiencies, roll bond rings, use particular chefs, without having to draft the requisite emblems or units. You can throw all the weapons you aren't allowed to use into the Ancient Well or sell them. There's a few class system hiccups we make exceptions for. Even if you haven't drafted Paladin, you can deploy Vander and Paladin until after Chapter 8 when second seals become viable. You're also allowed to deploy Yunaka and Zelkov and Thief until they hit level 21, after which point they must be in a class you can use. Moebius is a bit of a special case. The rules currently allow you to keep him in Royal Knight for Chapter 22, even if you didn't draft it, but if you're a purist, you may want to bring a second seal for him. So long as you draft a class that post-Chapter 10 units can second seal into, you shouldn't have situations where a unit can't be deployed in a promoted class because you can't satisfy the rules. To get your feet wet, let's look at the first Mega Draft. This is me drafting with 3 skilled players. Luminary has done basically everything under the sun in Engage, Paperclipped recently completed a Maddening Iron Man, and Giant Caliber's done several challenge Iron Mans you can watch on his YouTube channel. There's a fun one going on right now. I'm dragging down the group. This is my first real challenge run. I also hope it's clear that all of these thoughts about the meta are very much my own thoughts, spurred by discussion, and not stone tablets from on high. There have been 2.5 drafts. Lots is left to learn. The most valuable picks are the top shelf emblems, and nothing else really comes close. This is one of the awesome things about the Mega Draft. Your entire game plan is built around the first few picks, so it's inevitably going to involve some thinking on your feet. The checklist of what each emblem wants is just totally different. Current consensus is that the top 5 emblems are Lyn, Lucina, Ike, Byleth, and Micaiah. Lyn, Lucina, and Ike have tremendous availability and powerful enemy phase tools to win even badly outnumbered. With 4 players, someone's always left out of that group. To me, Chapter 14 Emblemless seems rather challenging, but it hasn't seemed to cause too many problems. Byleth's the next emblem in terms of availability, and when your team is lopsided, having your 4 best units move again only gets better relative to the rest of your turn. Micaiah is Micaiah. Saving actions by healing your whole team, XP gravy train early, no Sriracha if you want to get spicy, AoE status staves, and relatively simple skips to the most challenging maps in the game. Everyone except Giant Caliber was excited to mix things up and thought Micaiah might end up feeling too vanilla. Luminary instead picked Lucina. I was happy to see Lucina go for similar reasons to Micaiah. I've done plenty of Bonded Shield in my life. Paperclip took Ike and I grabbed Lyn. Giant Caliber was happy to profit from our pride, taking Micaiah and Byleth. I don't think he ran into many difficulties, let's put it that way. The Snake draft continued back to me. I had a specific idea in mind and went Erica. She makes Gentility a much better inherit, so my plan was to finesse a great skill and pick up a fantastic generalist emblem. Paperclip took Corrin, who is very good when your team is underpowered, and Luminary events to focus on the early game by going Celica. Bonded Shield Seraphim is a powerful combo. He also took Sigurd, which I'm somewhat skeptical on. I would have been stoked to pick up Roy afterwards because of how good the Binding Blade can be. This is the best part of the Mega Draft. There's now a dizzying array of options to pick, and because you aren't sure what emblems you'll get up front, you have to do a lot of improv. It's a long draft, so I'll spare you the play-by-play and focus on the broad strokes of what we ended up picking. Yours truly wanted to do something funny, and I've always wondered about dual support. This was the dual support run. I got 6 units that can lock together to support, daggers to chuck at people, and the power of friendship to carry me to victory. When this worked, it worked well, but it was both somewhat tedious and extremely difficult when dodge tanking wasn't viable, such as against enemy engage attacks. Giant Caliber got Micaiah, Byleth, Leaf, and the exceptional Warrior Longbow combo. With the Claude S bond ring, units get full range with longbows, so we ended up with a massive firing squad able to chew through enemies on player phase. With Micaiah and Byleth, you really don't need much else. Alir and Chloe took Leaf, snowballed a ton, and handled any required enemy phase combat. Paperclip had an honest approach. After a very rough Chapter 8, he got his team together. Animated killing with some Thorns rats, Ivy was Ivy, and Corn provided crowd control. Luminary focused on the early game. I might have focused a bit more on maximizing Lucina, but Saline Fire +5 apparently got him through the mid-game until Seraphim. He also did a great job of taking the stuff I wanted: Gentility, Lunar Brace, Silver Dagger, Avoid Boosting Engraves, even Lance Agility. How hard did this end up being? I was legitimately unsure about whether I'd finish, but even with dual support not exactly being the creme de la creme of game plans, I was fine. One reason I wanted to play the Mega Draft, and one reason I'm recommending it, is that you can explore a lot of tools that sometimes feel unfair playing normally. You have to remember that we're not trying to play for turn count or holding ourselves back. Meal rigging? Fine. Bond ring rigging? Encouraged. Degenerate strategies to break maps? Totally on the table. That's not how I'd want to play every run, but as a mix-up between expertly enjoying engaged planning sessions, it can be a lot of fun. In Chapter 6, I used a well-known degen strat. You can simply not deploy anyone in the southern section of the map and funnel everyone into the choke point. Alir took Marth and went ham, and I made the most of my one map of Micaiah to feed Yunaka a ton of XP healing Alir. Over-leveled Alir and Yunaka made quick work of the next maps, although I did sacrifice Lapis in Chapter 7 to make that smoother. Chapter 8 had a few hiccups. That's definitely a spicy map undermanned, so I'd recommend making sure you have a decent setup for it in your own drafting. If you're used to a faster approach, it's exciting to try it more as a defense map. One of my favorite parts of drafting is when you totally underestimate something or accidentally stumble into something cool. There's a pretty neat synergy with Citrine's personal generosity, which heals adjacent allies for the same amount when she uses a healing item, and Resonance. Resonance boosts her damage with Dire Thunder and puts her reliably below full HP. It's otherwise hard to get Citrine hurt without killing her. You get the full healing of an item from Generosity, not just the amount it actually heals Citrine. That means despite not being a Sage, Citrine became my AoE healer. After attacking, she could use a Vulnerary or Elixir, and heal all of the surrounding units by the same amount. Resonance and Tome Precision, which I ended up inheriting on her, both went undrafted and were free to all. Given some of the crap that got drafted late, it's fun to see stuff defy our expectations. Chapter 10 wasn't the easiest. Rosada's Killer Axe led to an early reset, because I didn't want to burn Rewind trying to manipulate enemy phase RNG. Eventually I figured that group out, but then my usual strategy of charging into enemy lines and hoping for the best hit unexpected difficulties. I ended up getting mobbed by both Hortensia and Goldmary at once. A more careful approach, kiting Goldmary's group and taking them out before approaching Hortensia worked well, however. Orion was a pushover, but Hyacinth was rather tricky without engage attack span. This led to one of the few real tactical clutch moments of the run, which was mostly no thoughts head empty gaming. Alchrist only survived Hyacinth by a hair, but I can't quite take him out this turn, and I can't really protect my frailer units from hit on enemy phase. The solution was to take out his doubles, which triggers his AI to use call doubles instead of killing a unit. He ended up choking himself off, which made the cleanup not so bad. After Chapter 11, it was time to experience the full power of No Holds Barred Lyn. Asterstorm can completely break Chapter 14 by aggroing individual bosses. I didn't do that, but I did snipe a thief to save myself some effort, and a huge speed taker stack definitely helps for the final boss room. Asterstorm and call doubles have so many problems. Ike's Paralog is really hard, but with a turn 1 Asterstorm it's not so bad. This was a round when I got dual support gaming online, inheriting it on my 6 core units who all supported each other. Dual support is quite the interesting skill to play with. I'm happy I've had the experience. In a 2x3 rectangle, my units had high enough avoid to tank most incoming damage. Anyone who left that formation normally died quickly. That means fairly limited options for movement, especially without canter. I can rotate and reflect in various ways, but it's not always easy to make sure I get the attacks I want. The team also lacked high-end damage. Well, except for Kegetsu. He was a murder machine. It's funny how little the normal difficulty curve lines up with a game plan like this one. I initially just wanted to try Erica Paralog for a turn or two to finally see the rectangle I'd spent 12,000 SP on, but it went so well I easily cleared most of the map. That is until Erica showed up. If Lyn's meter isn't full so I can't use call doubles, and I can't one-turn Erica, then I simply lose. I had to replay the whole map to bring more units for that section. Despite playing at a snail's pace, Lyn made it easy to get the loot by sniping the thieves. Chapter 17 was inartful, but the amount of avoid tiles makes the whole thing fairly lenient. You really can just kind of make it up as you go. Enemy engage attacks were again terrifying, but call doubles is broken. I won't go through the rest of my run in such detail. Dual support and Lyn are very good. The highlight of the run for both was probably Chapter 23, baiting the bosses with Asterstorm and then just holding on for a few turns made the map easy. The Fire Emblem gives a hit avoid plus 30 aura that makes dodge shanking really work right until the end of the game. For the last few maps I leaned on staves, both by entrapping past Lear and then warping into the center room of 25. A few sacrifices got me through 26 even with a badly underleveled team, having skipped a lot of paralogs. All in all, very fun. I made things significantly harder on myself than necessary to pursue my dual support dreams, but that's also part of what I'm trying to say with this video. The Mega Draft is generous enough you can express yourself as a player and pursue your own plans without feeling beholden to whatever is available in the draft, but it's also restrictive enough you'll feel it every map. I'm pitching this as a fun draft that you, engaged enthusiasts who may not be a challenger and veteran, should try. That's not to say it can't be a rough ride if you aren't prepared. To go over the most recent draft more carefully than the first, and cover what I think you should know if you want to play this with your friends. We've learned from our mistakes, so this should be a better reflection of what I'd recommend for new drafters. The other 3 drafters are veterans of a second Mega Draft. This one went a bit off the rails due to Forks deciding the Mega Draft wasn't enough of a challenge as is, so I'm not going to analyze it here. I don't think this would be indicative of your draft, but if you want to see how things went, here you go. I asked people to avoid anything too off the wall this time, so we're seeing a decent indication of what you get drafted with 3 other people who are trying to make life easier for themselves. I drew first. To me, there are 4 main picks to consider here: Lucina, Lyn, Ike, and Micaiah. I don't have strong feelings on the order without having used them all myself in a Mega Draft. I was excited to try Lucina, so that's what I went with. I felt the first 2 drafts somewhat squandered her talents. Saline picked Lyn, which makes a lot of sense. Forks went Ike, which also makes sense. He had planned to do solo Ike last draft but was denied the chance. EQ went Erica and Byleth. Micaiah starts dropping relative to where I and other people have her, but I think that's again just a function of how people prefer to play rather than how good she is. Forks picked Sigurd, which is not a pick I'd make, but one that does help early. Saline had mentally prepped to draft with Roy, so he again passed on Micaiah, and boom, Micaiah fell into my lap. I was ecstatic to take her and Corin. Saline is a believer in drafting a few of the important non-emblems before emblems. I do not believe in this strategy, but I can see the idea. By giving up an emblem, you make sure you're first in line to grab other important resources. If you know that you don't need that 3rd emblem, then you can guarantee a more consistent draft by foregoing them completely. That means Chloe is the pick here. Chloe is an amazing unit in almost any class who joins very early and can snowball with early resources, so she makes sense as a pick. Forks and Ihu pick up the last two emblems, and Ihu then picks Kagetsu. Having had the great fortune to use him last time, it's clear to me he's also in the top echelon of units. The Mega Draft doesn't necessarily recapitulate the standard tier list, but Kagetsu and Ivy definitely earn their spots at the top of both metas. Forks picks Mage Knight, which again makes a lot of sense. It's an extremely good class without many potential replacements. Saline picks Speed Plus, one of the premium inherits, and then I get to pick again. There's still one emblem on the board. Leaf's best build with Wrath and Warrior is mostly impossible to assemble. It requires too many distinct resources. Leaf's stocks have not been high, but I think perhaps that swung too far in the other direction. I was more than happy to take Leaf. My next pick was far trickier. I'd spent some time thinking about how to draft around Lucina. The thing about Bondage Shield is that it negates a lot of stats. You don't need Kagetsu's great defense, and if anything it's a downside. The real hot commodity is classes. There are only a few elite classes for Bondage Shield that maintain 100% uptime, although I do always have the Dragon 90% as a fallback good enough to get by. Before I draft units or inherits, therefore, I need a good class. I'd rather have taken Mage Knight, but that's gone, so Griffin it is. Griffin covers a lot of bases. It has decent enough magic offense, staves, and flight, all in one pick. I was happy to have it. Saline took Bolganone. There are only two elite tomes, Bolganone and Elfire, so it's more important to take them than it is to take good mages. This is one of the interesting curveballs in the Mega Draft. Half the players are playing without a great tome. Forks took Elfire while he still could, and EQ took Speed Taker, one of the precious few speed boosting inherits, and Warrior. Warrior is an amazing class that needs no introduction, and the chain attacks are much better at a slower pace than you might think. The last of the truly great classes is Wyvern, which Forks immediately snapped up. Saline picked Saline, I don't know, maybe there was some favoritism there, who can say, and I was very happy to get the Levin Sword. One of the weird things about taking 4 emblems is that I ran the risk of having no magic weapons for Griffin. At this point I have my bases covered as far as Lucina, I just need actual units to fill in. My first pick there was Marin. Not only is she very cool, but she's quite flexible, and that's nice to have in a Mega Draft setting. Saline took Amber, it's hard to let him go, but I know he's in a good place now, it's okay. And Forks picked Pandreo. Pandreo's kinda in a weird spot, and to be honest I was kinda shocked he got taken so soon. He's best with Bondage Shield after all, and I think he probably falls the most in terms of the gap between the normal tier list and one for the Mega Draft. Ihu picks 2 great weapons, Noatune and the Radiant Bow. Late game flyers are a big menace, and one of the things I'd recommend any player think of is a way to deal with them. That requires a bow unit, a bow class, and a bow. The Radiant Bow is exceptional there, and with it lots of archers can be competent. Forks picked up Lance Power, always good to get some kind of damage skill, and he is Sigurd for overrides later, and Saline picked up Axe Power. That left Sword Power for me, which was mighty convenient. That's my damage skill done and dusted, so I wanted some skill for speed. There aren't any speed boosting skills left, so I settled for Build Plus. And that's basically the same thing if I pick the right units, so we're good. I don't even miss Speed Plus, I promise. Saline picked Berserker, a big axe class for axe power and his emblems. It's also worth mentioning that you want a class your post-chapter 10 recruits can get into. Berserker's a lot better than normal when you aren't comparing it to Warrior, and as an option for Kagetsu or the like it's worth picking. Forks picked Louis, a good Sigurd user and Lance user. Ihu picked Cantor, which is surprisingly low if you've seen how Cantor is generally rated for normal play. Cantor's great for playing fast, and it's always useful for weaving in and out of enemy range, but I think it's not quite as important as reaching your core combat thresholds. This is about where I'd expect to see it go. Ihu got Boucheron for an early game carry, leaving Forks to pick Jean as a good Mage Knight carry with Ike, and Saline to pick Wolf Knight as a class with 6 movement and 1-2 range. Although my draft isn't quite ideal for her, if I'm going to go for a magical carry, I can't exactly pass up Anna at this point. She can inherit my 2 skills early and, hopefully, make me a little dough along the way. I also picked up Ivy, who I was somewhat surprised to see fall so far. Saline was very comfortable in their setup, and I don't think felt the need to deviate from the game plan, but I do think if you're drafting at home, you should pick up Ivy sooner than this. Flight, tomes, staves, and a capable mage are a fantastic list of boxes to check with a single pick. Saline took Sage, in part just to deny Ihu any magic save the Radiant Bow, but also for staff utility, and Forks picked Yunaka as an early carry. Ihu grabbed Panette as an excellent unit with Speed Taker and the like. I'm not going to go through the play-by-play from here on. The draft itself is a 2 to 3 hour affair, and I don't want to make a video that long. Let's look at how things shaped up, ordered here by kind of pick rather than draft order. What did my team end up looking like? Dire Thunder is one of the best bond rings in the game, so I was happy to grab Thunder and later Citrine. I wanted an option for Flamebang Korin, so that meant High Priest after Saline took Sage, and because I liked the Citrine Resonance combo so much last time, I drafted Resonance again. I drafted a lot of the Royals, so I didn't have to draft as many classes, ending up with a lot of units relative to the others. In part, that was because I drafted Halberdier, which is a good flunky class. I was convinced I could make less capable units pull their weight with pincer attack. That's especially true having grabbed Lunar Brace. I was definitely all good on dodge checking for a while, so I picked a very substantial team. Diamant, Timera, Alfred, Resolve, and plans to use the Sympathetic skill from C to S for a second Resolve to stack. I almost left Maren without a class, but I didn't end up getting Bow Knight for her until she could get into Griffin. I won't speak for the other players more than I already have, but they all focus on different options based on how they wanted to play. One interesting consequence of not splitting the draft into pieces is that you can end up with different numbers of each resource. I had 4 emblems and 11 drafted units and only 4 classes and 7 skill inherits. I learned last draft that having skills you can't afford because you spent all your books in dual support does nothing for you, so I was happy to throw a bunch of halberdiers at the enemy, but you do have to think about your plans there. I would have been happy to grab a few more weapons, but I didn't manage to snag everything. This draft was done late at night due to issues with scheduling and very much on vibes, so be generous when evaluating our picks. I would love to hear thoughts on the metagame in the comments, of course. If you were drafting in one of these things, here's the rough checklist I'd follow. Make sure you pick these up before you run out of options unless you're okay with going without. Grab whatever emblems you can get. Emblems are good. Get a class that can use staves, or alternatively one of Ivy, Hortensia, and Saline. Martial Monk, the base class, is accessible to anyone, so for late game staff shenanigans you don't need a draft pick, but a promoted staff user is definitely worth having for healing if nothing else. Get some kind of magic damage. That means a magic class, a magic user, and a magic weapon. The magic weapons and classes are tightly contested, so make sure you have those before you get too worried about statistical differences. Find something for enemy flyers. The Hurricane Axe is pretty good for some teams, but I think normally this means the Radiant Bow, Silver Bow, or Steel Bow in a pinch, along with a bow class and bow user. Hugado and Alcris save you a class pick. Some kind of physical 1-2 range is nice, but not necessarily required depending on the team. There's only the 4 weapons for this, except Brionac, which isn't available for most of the game. If you want a Wyvern to do enemy face sweeping, drafting Tomahawk or Spear early is definitely something to consider. I haven't talked about units much yet, because I don't think you're at risk of messing up your draft drafting poorly there the way you would by not having the right classes or weapons. I think the main thing to worry about here is availability. Chapter 8 in particular is very exciting in the Mega Draft even if you have a few units, and without a decent squad it can definitely end your run. Many of the flyers will ignore your units to safe the castle, so if you haven't drafted Eddie or Alchrist, you really do want to make sure you have enough guys here to plug your gaps and hold the line. The fun part about the draft is trying to figure out how to address all of these gaps in your team, think of some others I haven't even mentioned, and do that at the same time as everyone else. Something I don't think we've come close to optimizing, but I'm hoping this video serves as a good starting point for that metagame. I think if you start from the above checklist and then think about what your picks want as synergies from there, you'll be in a good place. Once you draft a class and unit, what skills and weapons do they want? What secondary units would work well given the resources you already have? If you're interested in getting started, there's the rule set doc in the description. The doc has the tier list maker, also linked in the description. If you're looking for people to draft with, maybe try joining the Engage Discord. That's also linked in the description. If you want to get started with this fun challenge run without the hassle of a 3-hour Discord voice call, I'm publishing these drafts for a reason. Pick a team you like, and you're ready to boot up Engage in a whole new way. I'd love to hear about anyone's experiences with my teams if you're so inclined. You can drop that info in the comments, along with any thoughts about the metagame itself. Are we all idiots? What picks are better or worse than what we have here? I'd love to hear from y'all. I'm also linking and showing here a tier list Saline worked on with significant input from me and the other drafters. We think this represents a solid snapshot of our current knowledge of the Mega Draft metagame, and you may want it as a resource when drafting. Lastly, this is my first standalone video. There may be a few others in the future, but for now I'm mainly working on expertly enjoying Engage, a highly planned casual playthrough alongside a full guide to the game. If that sounds up your alley, subscribe. Liking and sharing and whatnot probably helps too. Bye papaya!